How the bloody hell are ya? It is Easter Monday. It is week 3 of the NSDC, the National Social Distancing Cup, as I'm now calling it, and the mental portion of the competition is well and truly underway. We've had 3 weeks of limited contact with other humans, which ramped up substantially over the last 4 days as the Easter break came. Thousands of families that are used to getting away for a few days or spending time with extended family or having benders with mates have all been locked inside the same 4 walls, made pretty much prisoners in their own home. Now, that was what this podcast was meant to be about, and we'll get to it in a bit. But first, I just went to Bunnings. I finally tapped out of the prison sentence and went for a drive to get some essential, in air quotes, items. I had to get out of the house. But the universe being the universe, probably did it for a reason. I'm so glad I did. Apart from seeing the wonder that was people being herded like cattle through a winding array of ropes and witches' hats to see if you're lucky enough to be able to enter and get the full 4-person per aisle Bunnings experience, I bumped into a couple of people I knew, and I had conversations with both of them, and those conversations changed what this podcast was going to be about immediately. So first, an acquaintance pulled me up. He's a guy I know. He's a guy I know through a couple of different ventures. Wouldn't go as far as to call us mates, but definitely know each other well enough to have a good chat. And he obviously knows I'm in real estate. And this guy has a couple of investment properties, and he pulled me up. He said, Cam, he said, I am, to quote him, scared shitless of what's going on with the rental stuff. What happens if my tenants stop paying rent? Well, I can't do anything. I'm not allowed to talk to them. I'm not allowed, we can't kick them out. We can't, and people that might be listening to this are going, oh, poor bloke, he's only got a couple of investment properties. For a lot of people, that's their entire income. And they can't be begrudged for being good enough at what they do to put themselves into a position where they've got a couple of investments there to fall back on. I'm sure that's what we're all trying to achieve. So his situation and his fear was real. You could see it in his face. You could see it in his eyes. If they're relying on a substantial portion of their income to come from these rental properties, with all the crap that's been dished up in the media, why wouldn't you be scared? So we had a chat, and all I did was explain the rules as I know them, because it was only this morning. In fairness, it was only this morning that the New South Wales government released its policy that it's going to try and push through Parliament on residential tenancies, and that says that tenants still have to pay rent. Even before that, the government had said, and there were fact sheets out saying, tenants are bound by the conditions of their lease. They still have to pay rent. If they are in a position of hardship, they have to be able to prove that position of hardship, and then it is strongly recommended, and I think it's about to be mandated, that landlords come to the party and negotiate with their tenants on their rent. I'm not across all the details of what the New South Wales government said this morning, but a big part of it was any discount or part of any discount has to be paid back. They can't just stop paying your rent and take all your income, stay in your house and get away scot-free with it. Apart from that, every other condition of their lease stands. If they trash your property, you can kick them out. If they're not suffering financial hardship, can't prove it and don't pay their rent, you can kick them out. So I explained all this to him, and straight away the look on his face changed. There was a few sighs, a few deep breaths, and he left the conversation feeling better about himself. Now, the second conversation was with a friend. Now, this guy I've known for 6 or 7 years now. Absolute sweetheart of a dude, and yes, I can say that. He's a sweetheart of a dude. He's a chef. He owns a restaurant, and he has a separate catering company. Very, very good at his job. And if you knew him, if you knew this fella, you'd know him as, when you meet him, always smiling, always positive, bubbly, very extroverted. He does live cooking shows in shopping centres, and he does live cooking shows on cruise ships, and he's an out there guy, and I absolutely love him to death, him and his family. Well, today I bumped him for the first time in a while. Last time I spoke to him, he'd just opened up his restaurant, or he was a couple of months into his new restaurant, and things were absolutely flying. Well, I bumped him today in the light bulb aisle at Bunnings, and his soul was missing today. The guy I know was nowhere to be seen. The restaurant had only been open for 8 months. It's been reduced to takeaway only and isn't covering costs. The catering company, well, it stopped on a dime, and he lost $80,000 in bookings in 24 hours. Weddings, you can think with all the events that have been cancelled, anything with a group of people, which was his core business. The catering company's been running for a lot longer than the restaurant, but while he was getting the restaurant up and running, the catering company was supplementing everything he was doing. Gone, completely stopped on a dime, 100% downturn overnight. So, among other things that we were talking about, one of his massive concerns is the leases that he has on his properties. So he's got a lease on his restaurant, and he's got a lease on the factory that they run the catering business out of. He said, I can only hope. I'm just hoping that the landlord might be able to help me. Otherwise, I'm probably going to have to shut the company down. I'll have to shut the companies down because I won't be able to pay the rent. I'm going to have to break leases, and the only way out of it is to shut down. So again, I explained to him, last Tuesday, the government released its policy on commercial tenancies. That policy says that whatever downturn in your business you're using to get the JobKeeper payment, the $1,500 a fortnight, whatever downturn you show to justify that, then your landlord must reduce your rent by that much. So, in even figure terms, if I have a 50% downturn in my business, the landlord has to cut the rent in half for the period of the coronavirus, or 6 months. Now, of that discount, so if he's given me a 50% discount, 25% of that discount has to be waived forever, and 25% of it has to be paid back before the end of the lease or within 12 months, whichever is shorter. So if I've got a 3-year lease, I can't take 3 years to pay back the money I owe. I've got 12 months to do it. Now, for someone like my mate, who's had a 100% downturn overnight, based on the information that's been released, he won't have to pay any rent. And he'll be able to save his business. He'll be able to put it on hold until things turn around. And yes, when they do turn around, he'll have to pay back half of that. But it's not 100% that he has to pay back. And he will be able to potentially save his businesses. He works mostly for himself. He doesn't have huge staff costings, especially in the catering side of things anyway, from what I believe. But again, 5-minute chat, the information that is out there talked about, and a bit of his old self came back to him. By the time we were walking into the fixtures and fittings aisle in Bunnings, we were talking about doing a podcast together and how we could keep busy while things were down. Here's my point. Knowledge is power, especially in tough times. Knowledge is power. We need to educate ourselves about the situations we are in, good, bad, or otherwise. We need to research our options. If we leave it to Channel 7 to tell us what we need to know, we're destined to lose hope, because that's all they're spreading. You cannot rely on a media release. You cannot even rely potentially on the announcements being made by the government in their press conferences, because they're lacking a lot of detail. If you are in a position of struggle and you are worrying to the point where it's taking your soul, you need to educate yourself and find out if you have options. The reason I did the podcast with the accountant last week or whenever it was the fear I had that many people around me weren't getting good or any advice around their situation. That trip to Bunnings just confirmed it again. A simple call to the right people, Department of Fair Trading would have sorted the issues around the investment properties, and a chat to an accountant, a good accountant, a chat to Fair Work, and again a chat to Department of Fair Trading would have cleared up my mate's issues around his restaurant and his catering business. We can't put ourselves through the ringer and refuse to ask questions because we might get the answer we need. Now, this whole situation has been stressing me out. There's no doubt about it. I can't sit there and say that I haven't suffered any anxiety or any stress about the current situation. But the one thing I've done since the very start is ask the questions of the right people. We know as much as my business knows as much as it can know at this stage about where things are heading. I still don't know enough. There's still not enough information. The government still hasn't provided enough detail around certain bits of legislation. But I know enough to know that I'm going to be able to negotiate rents on my businesses, going to be able to pay staff. We know enough. And that stops me walking around like a lost soul. We need to educate ourselves. Every GPS, you think about it, when you put in your GPS, it needs to know where you are before it can tell you where to go. You need a starting point so it can show you where to turn next. Now, it's up to you to find your own starting point. If you're relying on the government to tell you, to ring you up and go, hey Cam, just so you know, this is where you're at the moment, or if you're waiting for the media to do it, even worse, we're in a lot of trouble. Ring some people. If you've got a mate in business who might know, ring them. See if they know who you could call. In this situation at the moment, if you're a business owner or you've got investment properties, the people to call, Department of Fair Trading, Fair Work Australia, and your bloody accountant to make sure they're doing their job. There's a few fact sheets around. Fair Work Australia seems to be more detailed than some of the fact sheets that are getting put out, so get onto them. Department of Fair Trading will clear you up pretty well. In my case, I'm lucky that we're a member of a employers organisation called Reef that has legal people on its staff, so we ring for help every time we need to know something that's going on in the real estate industry. Not everyone's lucky enough to have that, but you might, and you wouldn't have a clue unless you ask people. So come on, guys. Instead of sitting in a corner hugging yourself, pick up the phone, ask the questions. You might get some answers that are going to help you get some help. All right. Now that that's said, Bunnings trip's over. The real reason I was going to do this chat today, how the hell is everyone coping with their social distancing and their isolation? Because as I said at the start, we've had about 3 weeks of it now, but the last 4 days being locked down over Easter has increased the stakes quite substantially in this. I call it a game, and I use the pun as the social distancing cup. That's just for myself relaxation. If I look at everything as a game that we're playing, I can come up with solutions on how to get around it and come out the other end okay. But I, for one, have started to find it a bit tough, especially over Easter. So, and it's important we talk about it. You know, Facebook and Instagram aren't telling the real story about what's going on, I don't think. I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. Well, in fact, I know I'm not the only one out there who, before Easter, was having thoughts about the difficulties around not being able to see mates or socialise with anyone other than work and family, not having somewhere to go to take 5 minutes for yourself. There's a lot of issues around it. We're social beings. We are evolved for human contact. Let's not forget that their whole reason for being on Earth is to procreate, to make babies. And while you might be getting some of that done in a household of 3 kids when you're locked down 24/7, the baby making machine's not exactly going full steam ahead in the Wilson household, I can assure you. Now, when this social distancing stuff started happening and we started talking about a shutdown, I started joking with a few people that what some people aren't thinking about is that people who have gone from barely seeing their family because of work, people who aren't used to hanging out with their kids 24/7 or their partners 24/7, or in fact being away from work, are going to struggle. And we used to laugh about it. You know, I cracked a joke about it, but the struggle is real. Now, for me, one thing I'll pride myself whenever I'm on here, and if you guys are going to take the time to listen, then I promise you 100% honesty and transparency. So there's nothing to hide here, and it's important we all talk. So for me, my release, well, the earliest on average that I get home from work would be 6 o'clock, the earliest, okay, PM. Now, I leave for work most days around 7:30. I'm in the office by 8 o'clock. So 8 o'clock till 6 o'clock. I'm out. If I've got a few appointments, if I've got people's houses to see, I'm out till 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, because in my job, you go to people when they're home, and that's home after work. I work every single Saturday till 5 o'clock, 5:30. I have Sundays off completely, unless there's something absolutely major that needs to be done. So for me, and even though I work with Crystal, she's in the office, I'm out and about. We probably see each other for 2 hours a day if we're lucky, or if she's unlucky, depending which way you look at it. And for the kids, I'm lucky if I see them an hour a day, except for Sundays. So they go to bed at 7. If I'm home at 6, I see them for an hour. In that hour, there's showers, there's dinner, there's getting ready for bed, basically, and maybe 5 minutes of television. So even in that hour, you wouldn't exactly call it quality time. So I've gone from that to working from home as much as I can because of the policies we've introduced into the office around the social distancing. Kids have been home from school, so before Easter, lots more time at home, trying to help homeschool the kids, although it wasn't helping much. My wife has been an absolute godsend, and she's the MVP of this whole operation. Even the stuff I'm talking about now, she's coping a lot better than I appear to be. But to go from 2 hours a day with your family to 24/7, that's a huge adjustment. And I'm not saying it's a negative thing, but it's an adjustment. Now, I'm a guy who I've got a 13-year-old son that I only see every second weekend, and I've fought tooth and nail for a large portion of those 13 years to be able to see him more. When I moved into real estate after working for myself in the fitness industry for a lot of years, I knew I'd be working Saturdays, and I had to make the decision on whether I essentially gave up Saturdays with my eldest bloke, or with the aim to put the family in a position where we could feed ourselves and pay a few more bills and hopefully get a little bit ahead in life, or keep doing what I was doing, which wasn't doing any of that stuff that I just mentioned. So essentially I gave up Saturdays with me eldest bloke. So this isn't a thing about not wanting to spend time with your family. Now, what I had previously was I had a release. So my release was after work. Depending on when I finished, I'd sneak into the pub for a schooner, probably 2 schooners if I'm honest. Or I'd get a bit of time to play the PlayStation. Now that might sound funny coming out of a 37-year-old bloke, but I'm a kid. We're all kids. I love the PlayStation. Love it. That was my getaway. I had more recently, I've had the podcasts I've been doing with other people. So the TL podcast with my good mate Thomas and Chriso, the Wine and Wisdom, where I got to leave work one day a week or one day a fortnight and go and sit with them two mates, because they are mates, drink a few bottles of wine and talk some good stuff. That was a release for me. Now, after 2 weeks of not doing it, no beer at the pub, no one to shit talk with, no human contact outside of work and family, and now the 3 days of Easter at home. Yesterday, no, it wasn't yesterday, Saturday, I reached for the PlayStation again. Now, the interesting thing about that was I spent 30 minutes playing Gran Turismo, which is one of my favourite games ever. Car racing, I've got the full setup for it, the steering wheel, the pedals, all the gear, and after 30 minutes I was like, oh, I couldn't even be stuffed, don't even want to do it. What I did do was put in a disc of a game that I hadn't played for best part of 18 months and re-downloaded it. It's called Rainbow Six Siege. It's a online shooting game. We run around and shoot people, but you get to talk to people. You get to put your headset on because you're actually playing with other people and talk absolute garbage with other guys who are too old to be playing video games on the other end and talk absolute shit. You don't know them, you've never met with them, but you get to have conversations with other human beings. You get to be so far from thinking about work or worrying about what sort of parent or husband you were being, to tune out for 5 minutes, to shut the door and have a different conversation. Now, it's not a consequence that we're going to hear about on the news until they've run out of everything else to scare us. But the struggle's real. I talked to a mate of mine. He'd been surfing. I rang him up, had a go at him because he was surfing the day after all over the news. A bunch of surfers were getting pinged for breaking social distancing laws and told they weren't to surf. So I gave him the warning, and his quote was, "It's all I've got left. They can't take that from me, and I'll keep going until I get caught and get fined or whatever they do." He said, they can't stop that. Now, he's a young guy. He's much younger than me. He's a tradie. Used to being out of the house all day, working long hours, always been a hard worker. Used to getting away for plenty of holidays too, him and his family. And he's a guy he's a social fellow. Got a lot of mates because he's a good guy. He hasn't been able to hang out with any of them. And he mentioned to me after a week that he was starting to struggle with the lack of being able to catch up with people for a beer and just have a chat. He's got I think she's 3 now. If I'm wrong, don't shoot me, but I think she's 3 now, his daughter, and he's taking on a much bigger role in the looking after her while his wife goes to work because she's in the healthcare sector. And that's been a challenge for him. And people don't realise, until you've spent all day, for a lot of days together with your kids, it can try you. There's a meme floating around that everyone's just found out what stay-at-home mums do all day. Now, I was never one to say that stay-at-home mums did nothing, but the meme was funny nonetheless, and it's true for a lot of blokes. We've been put in a position that one, we 100% didn't sign up for, and two, is so foreign to us, it's not even funny. And there'll be a lot of women in the same boat where the roles are reversed. Now, I've got another mate who was one of the most successful car salesmen in Australia. And because of what's happened to the car industry in the last few weeks, he's been cut to 3 days a week work. He's been told he'll only be getting the $750 from the government when it comes. He's got 2 kids under 3, and the newest edition, is only a week old. So here's a bloke that was used to working 11-day fortnights, again, not getting home till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Loves his job, was very, very good at it. Used to be able to have a beer with the boys after work to chill before he went home. And now that's all gone. And he's going to find himself for 4 days a week now, sitting at home with very little to do. Full-time care of 2 toddlers, and no one to go and have a beer with about it. No way to escape it, just for 5 minutes. And this is the mental game that I mentioned at the start. We're now in a mental game more than a health game. The virus is the virus. It looks like it's all somewhat under control. We still have to be very careful. We still have to do all the right things, and we still have to keep isolating, and that's going to become a mental game for a lot of people. Now, obviously the extra time with family for the most part is an amazing thing. There's a lot of people who are going to get to spend a lot of time with their kids that they never would have been able to and their partners if it wasn't for this virus. And overall, that is a great thing. That is an extremely positive thing. But the adjustment, that's going to be tough on a lot of people, and we can't take it lightly. Just like those two blokes I ran into at Bunnings who were really struggling with lack of knowledge about what was going on. There is no knowledge around getting shut down and all of a sudden being locked up with your family or inside your own house for non-stop. The theory about it is there's a doctor called Adam Fraser. He's well known for his third space theory, it's called. He's got a TEDx talk on YouTube called 3 Simple Steps to Not Take a Bad Day Home. And that'll give a much better explanation than I'll be able to do here. And the other guy, I'm a bit of a reader and a bit of a learner. So Brendan Burkhardt's an author, he's a motivator, he's a bit of a business guru. He's got a book called High Performance Habits. And in that, he talks about his release technique, which is basically a technique that you can do to release your day from your consciousness before you walk in the door and spend time with your family, because you don't want to be taking work home, essentially. Now, they're two guys that spend their life or spend their time trying to help guys and girls, in business like me, deal with the pressures of trying to be high performing at work and high performing at home. Well, their theories have just gone out the window in one foul swoop. There is no more third space. So Dr. Fraser's third space is about everyone's got to have somewhere where they can go, because we have 3 spaces. One is work, one is home. Well, 2 spaces. One is work, one is home. We need a third space. We need somewhere where we can go and decompress. We need somewhere where we can go and talk with people who aren't directly related to work or family. We need somewhere where we can go and talk shit, in my sense. Swear and fart and laugh and just talk absolute nonsense. We need that. And now that situation has been taken away from everybody. I'm sure my wife's third space had a lot to do with me not being around. It's now gone for her. We're in each other's faces all day, every day. It creates anxiety. It creates the need for a release. It created the need for me to try and lock myself in the cam cave and turn on the PlayStation. But even then, you got the kids coming in, wanting to play the PlayStation with you. You got, I've been lucky enough to sneak in and ask for half an hour to come and do this podcast. What are we going to do? What are the ways around it? Because for some guys, the pub might have been their only release. And sorry, I just got to clear. When I say guys, I just mean humans. Okay. For some guys, meaning humans, guys and girls, we're all the same. We're all equal. That hour a day they might have had to go somewhere else and have a beer or have a wine and talk to someone other than a work colleague or a family member might have been all that was holding things together. Who are we checking up on? I've talked a lot since I started this podcast about checking up on our mates. Are we checking up on people? Are people too scared to talk about what we're talking about now for fear of looking bad? I mean, here's me saying that it's starting to become a struggle being cooped up with your family 24/7. What kind of an arsehole am I? Well, no, screw that, because I guarantee you there's more people in the same position, but what are we doing for them? How are we checking up on it? Who's coming up with the solutions on how we can overcome it? What processes are you implementing yourself to help overcome it or stop it becoming an issue? There's lots more people exercising now. That's fantastic, but you can only exercise for so long. You can't train 13 hours a day. Me, in my current state of my body, I'm doing half an hour most days, which I'm pretty happy with because it's more than I've done for 4 or 5 years. It's not because of the isolation. It's because of the doctor had some bad news for me a few weeks before this isolation thing started, so it was time to do something. And I've kept that going. Even then, though, you're talking to yourself. Where are we going to get human contact from? Is it okay that people still need their space? These are all questions that we need to do a better job of answering, I think, for everybody. I don't have the answers. I'm just here to talk about it. Make sure it's okay for other people to talk about it. Because one thing I don't want is anyone who knows me or anyone around me to feel like they can't talk about it. Where's your third space? What strategies can we implement to give you a bit of a third space in this time where your space is gone? Now, I've asked a couple of psychologist people to come on here and do a chat with me, much like we did with the teacher and much like we did with the accountant. They seem keen, but they've got a lot on their plate, so it hasn't happened yet. I'm not going to sit here and try and be a psychologist. I'm not. And like I said, my anxiety's rising just like a lot of people out there. But I came across from the Black Dog Institute yesterday. I get emailed a fair bit of their stuff because I support their cause pretty strongly. I've donated them a fair bit of coin over the time. They focus, well, their whole focus is mental health, but in particular they do a lot of stuff for men's mental health, which, if you haven't listened to me before, is a huge priority of mine because more blokes kill themselves than anybody else on the planet. And they're more blokes my age and my demographic. So it's very important for me that enough people are getting the help out there that they need. So the email I got from the Black Dog Institute was talking about managing your mental health at home. It focuses a lot on working from home. People have been forced into a situation now where they're working from home too. So, you know, I've talked before about kids who are now home from school when school might have been their escape, especially if they're in bad situations. There's a lot of adults that are in that position too. Not me, luckily. Not me at all. But a lot of people who got to go to work for 8 hours a day to get out of their head or get out of whatever they were shit talk they were doing to themselves now don't have that option. So I'll read you a bit of this. If anyone listens to this and wants it, I can send it to you, but I'll give you as much as I can in a nutshell. So it says here, it may start as a bit of a novelty, but working from home for long periods of time can start to affect your mental health. Just as it is important to look after your physical health during these circumstances, it's important you stay on top of how you are feeling. Some common feelings are feeling isolated, lonely, or disconnected from other people, socially or professionally, being unable to switch off from work, having difficulty staying motivated, having difficulty prioritising your workload, feeling uncertain about your progress and whether you're performing okay, insomnia and sleep problems. I can relate to that. I haven't had a very good night's sleep for a few nights now. A bit of anxiety creeping in. So here are some tips to protect your health when working from home. It says set up routine and structure for your workday and create boundaries between work time and home time. So lock yourself in a room. Well, the next point, create a specific place in your home where you work and avoid your bedroom. So basically those two things combined. Find yourself a space, lock yourself in that space, do your work for a set period of time, then come out. But when you come out, you're not doing work, you're doing family or doing whatever else you're going to do. Studies show that working from home can interfere with sleep, especially for people who find it difficult to switch off from work. Avoid working in your bedroom if possible. It will then become associated with being alert, awake or switched on. So really important. Stay connected with co-workers and your manager by scheduling regular virtual or phone meetings. Now, it's one thing I have done with a few of the boys, which has been good, and it's been good for a laugh. We got Zoom. You wish you bought shares in that a few months ago. There's a house party app now. There's FaceTime. There's Facebook. lives and all that sort of stuff we can be doing together. It's not going to replace human contact, but it does remind you that there's other people out there, and if you're anything like me, you'll find that there's other people out there going through the same sort of stuff. Try digital detox in the evening. So again, drawing on my own experience, I'm on the computer all day if I'm not out at appointments. Computer all day doing work, and social media is a huge part of what we do as a business anyway. So on social media all day, it can leave you fried. It will fry your brain. Part of the thing I'm doing to help push through this and come out the other side in front is increasing my social media presence. Doing a lot more, being more present than ever. And that's so when people are looking for someone to turn to when all this comes over, then they need to move their house, I'm the guy they call. But the downside of that is so much more time on computers and phones. So have a detox time. Lock your phone away. Turn your computer off. Just like you have set work times, have a set time where there's no technology in the house. Get outside at least once a day. That's a no-brainer. Fresh air, bit of sun. Bloody daylight savings is over. It's a horrible time for daylight savings to end, but get out and amongst it. Focus on the silver linings. So find positives in what we're doing. Now, a positive is that we get to spend more time with our family. Positive is that we get to work out what's really important to us. Positive is we get to spend time recalibrating our businesses or our work and finding better ways to do things. There's lots of positives in this situation. Don't forget the other helpful actions for maintaining positive mental health. Exercising, getting a good night's sleep, eating well, doing activities you enjoy, staying connected with social support, and managing your stress through problem solving. Now that taps back into what I said at the very start. If you are stressing about a situation, you need to problem solve on it. You can't do that if you don't educate yourself. Keep educating yourself. Relaxation, meditation, and thinking in helping ways. What can you do to help other people? That's something that I've lent heavily on in the last few weeks, is just finding out what I can do to help anybody. Ringing mates, ringing elderly that I know are in the neighbourhood, ringing old clients, ringing anyone I can. How can we help? It puts you in a much more grateful frame of mind and takes away from the stresses of your day. It says, think of the positives as well as the negatives. We just talked about that. Gives a couple of helpful online tools. So mycompass.org.au, an online clinic from the Black Dog Institute, which is onlineclinic.blackdoginstitute.org.au, thiswayup.org.au, and mindspot.org.au. If anyone needs that information, get in contact and I can send it through to you, but jump on those websites. And just have a think, guys. Not everything you see on Facebook, not everything you see on Instagram at the moment is 100% true. Well, it's never 100% true, because how often does someone put their good times and their bad times out there for everyone to look at? You get people who only put their bad times because sometimes they're attracted to the drama, and sometimes you get people who only put their good times because they think that that's what people want to see. But it can create a false impression. It can make you think that you must be doing something wrong because everyone else seems to be coping okay. Well, don't dig yourself that hole. Don't go down that rabbit hole, because there are other people in your situation. It is tough being a dad, running a business, and going from seeing your kids for 1 hour a day to 24 hours a day. It is tough. And anyone who wants to take issue with me over that is fine to do so. Husbands and wives who are used to seeing each other a couple of hours a day, being around each other 24/7 is tough. Your relationship wasn't built on that. You have never been in that situation before. Crystal and I have been together for 10 years. We haven't been on a holiday really for longer than a week in 4 years. We're not used to spending this much time around each other. Anxiety is okay. It's going to be a natural response, but just understand what it's a response to, and then let's be solutions focused. I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky ones. My wife is an absolute gem. She has been a rock through this, and I'm sure if some of her friends were to give her a call and see how she was doing, she'd probably have a fair bit to get off her chest as well. She should just do a podcast. And the kids, kids have been amazing for the situation they've been put in. They've never had to be around their parents for 24/7. Think about it on the other shoe. This thing goes each and every direction. But we can't be expected to be rocket scientists, and we can't expect to get it through it all by ourselves. So again, probably for the 5th time in these podcasts, get around your mates, male, female or otherwise. Check if they're okay. Arrange some social gatherings on Zoom or on the internet. Call up for a laugh. Everyone's going to need the help. Keen to know if anyone else is struggling. Keen to know if I can help in any way. Get in touch with me. Anyone who's listening to this is probably already on my socials, has my phone number. Let me know if I can be of any help. Let's have a conversation. Now's a great time for connecting with people you haven't spoken to for a long time. It is okay if you're struggling being locked at home. It is okay. Keep telling yourself that. Let's find a solution. That'll do me. I'm sorry this one went for a bit longer, but I think it was important. I hope I didn't rabble on too much. There was a lot there I wanted to get out, and obviously with the stuff that happened today, we got a bit longer. If you like what you're hearing, or you think anyone can do with the advice or get around it, please share, please like, please follow. Obviously, during times like this, it's not about getting likes and follows to increase my credit. I don't get anything out of doing this except a bit of enjoyment. I'm really enjoying doing the podcast. But hearing this might be all that one of your mates needs to pull them out of a dark place. I'm Cam. I'll talk to you soon.